Interface assets and binding. Interface assets enables your running IntuiFace experience to communicate with any external data source, business logic, or device to ensure you're always displaying the most recent and up-to-date information. To illustrate how that works, what I'll do is I'll show you some of the interface assets we ship out of the box. We've pre-built a bunch of interface assets for you. Now, technically, you could have built all of these yourself. In fact, we document online how to build your own interface assets. You don't have to pay us to build an interface asset. You can build it yourself. And we have a lot of customers who do that. But there's a variety of capabilities that either we felt were really cool value adds or so popular, so commonly popular, we wanted to build it and just make it available. So here are all of the pre-built interface assets that anybody can use, even with the free edition. Text-to-speech. On Windows, both static and dynamic text can be read aloud by the voice synthesizer on a Windows 8 and 10 device, which is really great for accessibility. People that don't see well, for example. Out of the box, don't have to pay a dime. You can have text read aloud by any of the voices installed in your PC. Any PC running player. Data tracking. The beauty of interactive content is you know what people are interested in because they touched it. Unlike a static sign where you have to completely guess about its effectiveness, with an interactive sign, you know exactly what's effective because people touched it, or watched it, or read it, or whatever. Doesn't that mean there's a rich wealth of information that can be collected at that interactive kiosk and used to measure what's working and what's not working in your design or in your catalog or whatever? Absolutely. We built this enterprise class capability enabling you to collect that information and make it available in pretty much any analytics platform on the planet. Beacon detection URL broadcast. I'm not sure everybody's familiar with the notion of beacons. They're particularly popular in retail and in museums and other areas that have exhibits. A beacon has a unique identifier. So imagine a museum, and every work of art has its own beacon. That beacon's job is to do one tiny little thing, which is to broadcast a unique ID. That's all it does, is to broadcast a unique ID. IntuiFace has the ability to detect and capture that unique ID. Once it has it, it can use that ID to display information relevant to the work of art, for example. It can do a lookup and display information based on that unique ID. Pretty cool. URL broadcast essentially is asking IntuiFace to act as a beacon. So rather than reading a beacon, it's acting as a beacon. So if you're in a retail context or some kind of museum, a gallery, some kind of library, you can use beacons to tag items in your exhibit and then have maybe an IntuiFace experience on a tablet. People are walking around your exhibit. IntuiFace detects the beacon, grabs the unique ID, and shows information about that particular artwork. Come on, that's impressive, right? Device information. You can get information about tablet orientation and the IP address of the device and things that might be conditionals. If this is an iPad, show this. If I'm running on an Android, show that. Excel. This is the heart of working with external data sources. The beauty of Excel is it's the poor man's database. Everybody understands Excel. The principles of working with Excel can apply to any external data source. Excel is just easy, and it works out of the box. You don't need a special interface asset for it. Geocoding, address to coordinates, and vice versa. Here's Philips Hue. That's an example of an item on the Internet of Things. Philips Hue light bulbs have an IP address. They have an API. You can talk to them through REST-based web services. Turn on, turn off, change your color, flash. We can do it, and we built that out of the box. You could have built it yourself. We did nothing proprietary. We publish everything you need to know to build it yourself. We thought it's pretty cool. We built it for you. QR code generation. Do that on the fly. Send emails from IntuiFace. You could add attachments or save like the annotated images we looked at to the local file system or USB key. Check this out. Live Flickr search, Instagram search, RSS feeds, Twitter feeds. Live, real-time display of Twitter feeds for any hashtag or user account. Now we transition to business logic a little bit. These are things where right now you cannot imagine using them maybe, but in a week or two you'd say, you know what would be nice? And some of that's here. A chronometer, a clock, countdown timer, a scheduler. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 o'clock, do this. Every Tuesday and Thursday and Sunday at 4 o'clock, do that. In the signage world, day parting is premised on the notion of displaying certain content at certain times of day, and you'd use the scheduler to do that. Value operators, comparing values, global variable, a random number generation, a counter. Again, all of these things you may not perceive any value for you right now, but in a little while, all of a sudden it becomes very important and it's available out of the box. Weather. So let's look at that one. So we'll illustrate interface assets starting with weather. By drag and dropping the interface asset into my experience, I'm asking it to display the default template. This is something we built so you can see how the interface asset works. You do not have to use this layout. It's just text assets, image assets, etc. There's nothing magical here. You can completely blow it up and do whatever you want to this data. It's just a way to look at it. Okay. Let's also add Twitter. Tweet list. Drag it in. This is a live Twitter feed. If you look at the properties for the Twitter feed, we default to IntuiLab, of course, but I could add IBM. And this updates in real time. See that? Now we got add IBM. For local weather, this also has properties. For example, location, like with Boston. And now we have the weather in Boston. See that? This is live. Twitter, you know, this is coming through Twitter's API. This weather is coming from Open Weather Online. Some group was nice enough to make weather information available for free over the internet. But I can change this on the fly. It doesn't have to be done at design time. If I jump into play mode, for example, see Boston? I can touch my screen, type in Paris, enter, and now I'm getting the weather in Paris. It's all interactive. I can still manipulate this, but that's a live feed. Here's my Twitter feed. A little bit of eye candy. Remember, tap item to open. 1, 2, 3, tap. See it? Whoops. See it there? Under the covers, it's still just a collection containing a bunch of stuff, and I can do things like tap item to open. All in real time. Binding is the glue that makes interface assets possible. Binding is that mapping of that value from over there to this thing over here. Okay? That's what binding is. You can not only bind from something external to something inside your experience, but you can also bind within the experience itself. And there's an easy way to show that. Let me move this over a little bit. See this logo? Let's open up the properties panel. Notice the X and Y properties are, I guess that's fuchsia. Not sure what that is. That means that this value for X is not here. It's coming from something else. It's bound to a source. The source determines the value, and it's mirrored over here, thanks to binding. If I click it, it shows me what it's bound to. In this case, it's bound to the X property of the IntuiFace logo on the introduction scene. It's on a different scene. It's not even in the same scene. It's in a different scene of this experience. Don't believe me? Let's check it out. So we'll go up to the intro scene. Here's my logo. We'll drag it to the bottom. Hello, logo. We'll go back to the interface assets and bindings. There it is. And there's my logo at the bottom because it's bound. So binding, that glue, is not just for interface assets and an external source. It can also just be for any property, as well as any trigger parameter or action parameter. They can involve binding as well. To illustrate how powerful IntuiFace can be, if I open up that properties panel once more, see the little shell-looking shape there? This color means it's bound. This little shell lets me convert the source value before it's brought here. We call it a binding converter. It converts the value coming from the source before it goes into the target. These are all pre-built as well, and we even give the ability to write your own. So we won't even touch on this stuff beyond that little visual. But there's a lot of stuff buried in the product, giving you enormous flexibility to create content that reacts dynamically to its environment.